Today, we are talking about staging for marketing sites. Keep it simple. Quick caveat before we dive in here. This is about marketing websites. So, the primary purpose of the marketing website is to promote the business, to showcase, the brand story. There's not sensitive data on this thing. So, we're not talking when I'm talking about staging and some of the things that I'm recommending here, I'm not talking about if you have a web application with production data, with personally identifiable data, or if you're in a regulated industry with particular workflows that need to have happen. So this is for let's say in the manufacturing, a B2B website, B2B marketing website, not a SaaS app. So with that, I keep it super simple and follow two rules. Number one, keep staging private. And I'll talk about how here in a second. And also publish only from production, and why I've arrived at this after many years of trying different methods of running staging sites. So the core idea here is that staging is just a rehearsal space and that production is your performance. So we've got the metaphor here of rehearsal versus when it's showtime. So when staging goes wrong, there's usually a few ways it goes wrong. But typically, if it's confusing or if it's inconvenient, people aren't going to use it, and they're gonna bypass it, and staging's gonna rot. So people usually follow. In my experience, there's usually two camps that users end up falling into. Oh my gosh, I'm mimicking anxious Andy here. The first one is what we can call an anxious Andy, and that is they tiptoe around staging. They're scared to break anything. They're nervous, even though staging is set up to be able to break things and to practice. It's there for rehearsal. So there's people that still are reticent to use staging. So we call those an anxious Andy. The other persona is the other end of the spectrum. Call her a burnt out Brianna. She ends up stopped using staging. She's probably worked on lots of websites. And if it's inconvenient, if it gets in her way, if it's doesn't have representative data that's similar to production, she'll just YOLO straight to prod. She bypasses it. She doesn't care. She'll just go in and let it rip. If I had to recommend one over the other, I would do it this way. This is more my ethos, and then you can always change things and fix things. That's not to be reckless, but if you're going to veer in one side, you want to be more like a burned out Brianna than an anxious Andy. But really, we don't want to be either. So the real issue here is that staging is often overcomplicated and underexplained. So there's either too many steps, or it's not clear how to do it, or there just hasn't been proper training on, hey, here's how we use our staging website. So I follow a couple simple rules, and this strikes a balance between making the staging safe and then making it serve its purpose as a place to kind of work out ideas and to rehearse things before you take them live. So rule number one is I like to use password protection on staging using basic authentication, which is a web standard. You've probably seen these little pop-up boxes. You can do this basically anywhere, with any sort of web hosting. It keeps bots and random people out. It doesn't really slow down testing if you use something like Screaming Frog, or use something. You can usually pass in basic auth credentials so that it can bypass and get in and see the real site. I don't put a secure username or password here. I would typically just be the name of the brand or something very simple. This is just a crude way of keeping prying eyes out. But again, it's a marketing website. It's not the end of the world if some hacker made their way in and saw that you published a product update. So rule number two, do not push staging to production. So this is talking about, the code we'll go through. We're not talking about on the development side. We're talking about the content. And I've gone back and forth on this over the years, and I know that there's some platforms like WP Engine, for instance, has a nice tool where you can actually promote content from staging into production. And there are other CMSs that will help facilitate this. I don't love this idea because in my experience, what you end up with is stuff that's half done or incomplete, or someone on one team does something, one user half publishes a product, and you end up accidentally pushing stuff into production that you didn't intend to. The other thing that happens here is sometimes, depending on the platform, the way that you do this can lend itself to causing errors and issues. So just technically moving stuff that affects, the database schema, or that has lots of images, sometimes you can end up with staging paths in production and cause issues. So I like to treat staging as go in there and practice, try it a few times, and then go do it in production. And yeah, it's a little more work, but to me it's just safer and simpler. So my methodology or my approach to this is staging exists to build confidence. Go in there, try things out, get it so you're happy with it, and then go do it in production. So keep your staging site boring, simple, protected, and keep production sacred, and that's the real thing. That's showtime.